Welcome to the inside of my Chevy Suburban, 2007 Chevy Suburban. So the electric tailgate release has stopped working, and I need to open it to try to figure out why. So I've climbed into the back, and the first thing I'm going to do is undo the little torque screw under the little pull strap. Now I am able to open the glass hatch with the remote, but again the main tailgate's not working. So with the glass hatch open, I have to take these two little kind of plastic holders down. You push the center part all the way in, and then you can pull the mushroom part out. I've now pulled the top trim piece of the door off. There's these little metal clips kind of spaced throughout the top. And on the sides, there are plastic little white mushroom clips. I couldn't get a good camera angle while the tailgate was closed and I was back there with the big plastic cover. So I have it open, the plastic cover's here. But what I had to do on this actuator, this is the latch actuator, there's a little lever with a hole in it. I had to reach my hand down, get my hand down in here, and then with my thumb, I was able to push this latch towards the rear of the car. That unlatched the latch, and then I was able to push the gate open. So when I used the electric lift gate on my Suburban, it stopped working. I pressed the button either on the outside or on the remote to open the gate. I hear the noises of it unlatching the latch, and I hear noises like it's trying to lift it, but it doesn't actually lift. And then I lift it by hand and I can feel like gears skipping or something. So we have to get into the mechanism that does this. So the lift gate is held up by the two hydraulic or pneumatic cylinders, one on each side. And this metal bar does the raising and lowering, so the mechanism must be somewhere under here. So you slide up the little spring clip to the top, and you can pull this off of its bar. And then, let's see, let me get a light. So inside here, there's a motor, and there's some kind of linkage for this bar. So I think there's a gear that's stripped, so we got to get in here to find that. There's a little cover with a screw under it, and then I think we just have to pull this panel out. We actually start pulling down this top trim piece. It's just got little plastic clips in the body, so you just reach in with a screwdriver and carefully pry those out. Once the top piece is pulled down enough, you can see those plastic clips there. Once the top piece is pulled down enough, you can pull the top side trim piece down. After you unplug the speaker, you can just slide this off over that bar. You can see where this is held on by the metal spring clips and that one screw that goes right through that spot. That's pretty cool. Behind it you can see the airbag actuator for the side curtain airbag. The explosive is in that canister, and there's a metal tube that the gases would go through, and then you can actually see the fabric curtain up in there. That's actually what would pop out in the event of an accident. Now I've pulled up this trim piece. It just has little metal clips all the way along it. It came up quite nicely. And now I get to clean all the crap that has fallen around the latch. Now I've managed to pull the side trim piece far enough away. There's a series of metal clips along under the window and along this back edge. I've pulled this far enough away I can now reach this motor, the whole mechanism. It's got some plugs up here in the back, and then I'm going to unbolt the whole thing and take it out. So after taking the motor assembly out with kind of a lifting motion to get over this pin, and there's a little hook here that goes into the body. You then undo the latch and you take the little controller off. There's two limit switches. One of the limit switch plugs is here. I took that one off, and this little thing goes here. When the lift arm is in its upward point, where it's just about where it's touching this limit switch. Let me see if I can lift this up here. So there's a limit switch here that has a little arm that rubs on part of that gear. Right, so here the limit switch is open, and then when this moves it closes, right? So at the point where that limit switch is touching, that's where there's about no spring preload on this spring here. So this goes this way, this has arrows on it. You can see the arrows, so when you, I took it off in this orientation, but it looks like if that arm is in another position when you put it together, you can turn this way to get it to give enough spring tension where it wants. But this is the spring tension where it came off. There's really zero tension when the arm had just hit that other limit switch. So I undid the screws. I took the spring off, the clock spring off. I've undone the screws on this little housing. I can take this off, and now we have the plastic gear here. Now to take this plastic gear off, we're going to have to undo this nut on the first little metal gear here. It's a 13 millimeter nut. When I take this off, to prevent it from unscrewing, I'm going to actually jam a screwdriver into the gear teeth here, and that will prevent it from turning and provide me the back force I need to take that nut off. With the nut off, I'm going to be able to slide this gear forward. The arm falls, no more spring tension. And I get my whole mechanism here. So let's take a look at this. So it turns out I have not been able to diagnose what's wrong with this lift gate using just observation and taking it apart and looking and seeing what I could see. Testing with a multimeter. Is there 12 volts here? So I ended up going to a friend's shop where we used a snap-on scan tool. The GM Tech 2 would have also helped us out. We had to plug into the OBD2 port, and then we had to look at the live measures from the liftgate computer. And it turns out that this motor that does the latching, there's actually 3 switches internal to that motor, and one of those switches has failed. So I ordered a new one. This is actually the new one. Here's the old one that's come out. So you can't really see anything from the outside to indicate that one of its 3 switches inside has died. Maybe I'll take it apart and see what's up. I looked online. These are about $140 from an aftermarket provider and $220 from GM. Reading the reviews, it seemed like the GM one was the safer bet. Some of the aftermarket ones had to be replaced after a few months, and this isn't a job I want to do again. So I've put all of the trim back together for the mechanism, because none of that had to be replaced. And then I still have all the trim off of this, but I've put the new motor in, wired it in, and now when I press the close button, it closes properly. Pardon all of the salt. We've had a pretty snowy last few weeks, and if I press the button inside the handle here, again, it's ready to open up. So now I just have to put the trim back on the inside of the tailgate and I will be all set. My curiosity got the better of me, so I had to take out all the screws and open up this latch assembly. So there's a top cover, and under the top cover is the main gear and a motor with a worm gear on it. And there's little electrical connections down here. And I had to use a screwdriver, but you pry the motor up, and then you've got this housing. There was another screw under the motor, and then now this housing comes up, and there's a series of gears. So this white gear is connected to a kind of a long shaft gear, which turns both this little kind of yellow gear, which I don't know if the camera's picking up, but there's a like a little cam on it. And this black gear also has like a little cam on the bottom of it with a little like indentation and a pin. And there's a little micro switch here. There's two other micro switches inside. And there's like little levers and everything and latches. And it seems like when the trunk is released, the motor turns in one direction and kind of unlatches it. It must, use like one of these, probably the little cam pieces, to kind of move a little lever which kind of unlatches it, and then it opens up. And then the motor retracts to get ready for when it's closed. And then when you close the trunk lid, the latch will engage. This part of the latch here will gauge in and grab the pin, and then from there it the motor will close it. So the switches must be there to see if the motor is open or closed, and also see if the motor should open or close, and also if the latch closes like halfway, so it's like partially latched in but not pulled tight.